Mariners fans out there, do me a favor. Take a big, deep breath. Close your eyes. You can let out a little frustrated sigh if you want. That might help. And then we will get going. Dan Wilson was riding the struggle bus a little bit, and he was in a position to where some of these decisions, I think, were played a little bit too forecasty, and they were a little bit overthought. They didn't need to be this complicated, and they were made this complicated. And so we're going to get into a few of those because it wasn't just decision making. I think overall, the Blue Jays took advantage of opportunities and didn't make dumb mistakes like the Mariners did. We have some defensive blunders that led to a run or two there in Game 6. That ended up being probably what sunk them. And then there were some other pitch choice decisions that I was like confused by, and also personnel decisions. So let's talk about Dan Wilson and some of the decisions he made, because a couple of them are really glaring. And then there will be a couple other turning points or moments that are head scratchy and need a little bit additional explanation on why they were so important as well. There was just a bunch of weird stuff that I think if we were able to avoid these, the Mariners would end up being there. But one team made the mistakes, the other team didn't make as many. And oftentimes, when it comes down to 7 games, that is going to be the difference. All right, so first, let's talk about the decision to bring in Eduard Bizzardo to face George Springer. Now, the two kind of personnel decisions or maybe pitching change decisions that I'm about to talk about are both to George Springer. And I think they both had different impacts on the games that inevitably the Mariners lost. First things first, I want to start by saying that Bizzardo has thrown incredible this year. And he is a 31-year-old who bounced around all over the league and finally found his footing, throwing a really good sinker, more of a two-seam, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Really good arm side sinker with a good sweeping slider. Like, he's got the two quality pitches, though, because he throws a sinker, he's not necessarily the biggest swing and miss guy, or you can't count on it as much as, say, a Matt Brash or a Andres Munoz, two guys which usually throw after him, because it's usually Bizzardo or Spire in the 7th, and then they hand it off to the setup guy in Brash and Munoz to close. Now, Munoz had not faced Springer at all in the series. This was the 3rd time Bizzardo had faced him, so that is red flag number 1. If you're a 2-pitch pitcher against a guy like that sells out for a certain pitch type, like George Springer, you're playing with fire. There's nothing wrong with throwing 2 pitches. The problem is when you face the same guy who only throws 2 pitches, you not only can flip a coin, but you can also just guess right. You've seen the pitch shapes as well. So you know out of the hand, you're getting a better idea of when a ball looks a foot out of the hand a certain way, that it's going to be a certain pitch, okay? So those are the few things you think about, especially at this point in the series. That said, Munoz was rested fresh. I understand this was 1 out in the 7th inning, but you need the outs now, and you can worry about finishing the game when you get there, right? No one will ever, I think, second guess a decision to have Munoz come out, hold it there, and then if Brash ends up blowing it in the 9th or something, like where the guy pitched doesn't really matter. You have to get the job done either way. And I think you can live with that a little bit more than saving Munoz for a situation that you have to get to first. And that's usually how you need to do things in the playoffs. And I feel like managers get beat or burned when they try to think about it like the regular season. We're not saving Munoz for anything. This could be the last game of the year. Also, Bizzardo isn't as big of a strikeout guy as Munoz is. And there was guys on 2nd and 3rd with 1 out. There's no double play. So you don't need a ground ball sinker, double play. We don't need to try to get that because we can't. We need a strikeout. A strikeout would be ideal, especially to George Springer, who does have some swing and miss and does chase. And Munoz just will go up there and he'll throw you slider till you're out. And historically, Springer is 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts against Munoz. So I would have brought Munoz in here. Actually, to be honest, not just me, 99% of other people would. I think that was the no-brainer. And then just save Brash for a closing situation, or Brash/Spire together to get the final 3 out. Like, you have the 2 guys that you are comfortable with in leverage to finish the game if you need to, and it's a 2-run lead. You need to prevent the run from scoring, and the best way to do that is a strikeout. And we went to the guy of the 3 that doesn't strike as many guys out, or you can't count on striking out George Springer, right? So Munoz is the choice, or you can go to Brash, but Brash threw a bunch of pitches the day before, so maybe we don't do that. I totally understand that. Either way, though, better than the decision that was made, in my opinion. Okay, here's what Dan Wilson had to say after the game about using Bizzardo. He said, Bizzardo has been doing it all season long, and he's been so consistent at it. He's done such a good job all year. Felt really comfortable with him out there as the way he's been throwing the ball, especially this series, and was a good spot for him. I mean, most of the time, yes. And I agree that he is an option, and one of the better options of everyone in the bullpen. I would still go him over, 5 of the other guys, but you had your best reliever available. He's not your best reliever, and he's also right-handed. It's just like, sure, all that stuff's true, but Munoz is better in every single part of that statement. So I like that he's sticking with his decision and owning it, but that said, it was the wrong one. The problem is Bizardo's the worst matchup of all 4 options. So basically, I just went and looked and I said, okay, so like, what were the pitches, right? They were throwing sinkers to Springer way in all day. Some of it was because of the knee, some of it was because of what he handles well. But for the season, he had a 1,072 OPS against sinkers against righties. That is crazy high, right? On sliders, he had an 800 OPS. That's not bad. It's just much better than the sinkers. He is hammering sinkers because he hits down and in really well, and he hits up and away really well. And that's where righties are trying to throw sinkers. They're trying to get in on him and it's running down into his barrel. 2 seems a little better. That's what Bizardo's is. It stays on plane a little bit more. And they were trying to go up and in, but we saw Kirby do it at the beginning of the game. Nobody was hitting that spot. Nobody was getting it there. They were all missing up and in. And that doesn't do anything for George Springer. He doesn't like get off what he's going to do just because you're throwing up and in. You have to throw strikes there. That's what gets him out. So, 1, sinkers just aren't the best option. 4 seams are better. He doesn't hit 4 seams as well, up and in. And you hit the spot better. So guys kept having their sinkers moving in off the plate and he kept taking them. If that was more true and it's just a 4 seam, he's popping it up or he's taking it for a strike. So guys who throw better 4 seams up and in, Munoz again, are the better option in my opinion as well. Also, in 78 playoff games, this guy has 23 homers. Like, he is 4th all time. Is he 4th? No, he's 3rd all time. Tied with Kyle Schwarber for the most playoff homers of all time. 3rd all time. That's a guy you need to avoid hitting a homer, right? I understand Vladdy's right there. I understand Vladdy's coming. But Springer has done it and keeps doing it. So we have to avoid the home run. Like, this is all, we have to avoid the home run like a plague. So we need to throw the pitch that he's least likely to hit a home run on. We'll take a single and they can tie the game. That's not losing the lead. I think what we were trying to do is take a lot of risks to not give up any runs, which allowed us to give up 3 runs. And that, for me, just made no sense. Also, he had a sore right knee. We all thought we were going to throw in on him. It didn't matter. He's not afraid. He never has been afraid of it. He never will be. You can't get him off his game like that. That doesn't work. He bullies you. You don't bully him. That is the way that George Springer works. So, didn't like it. Needed a higher K rate. We needed a K right there, and that was the wrong guy to go get a K. The next not great choice, in my opinion, was in Game 4. We had Gabe Spire in the game in the 4th inning. It is 3-1 after Luis Castillo gave up a 3 spot. And Gabe Spire has someone on second with 1 out. There's a guy on second, 1 out, and George Springer's in the box. He has already faced 3 hitters, so he doesn't need to pitch to more guys. He can be pulled. Matt Brash is warming up. Again, Matt Brash versus George Springer is the matchup I want every single chance I get. Instead, we had Nathan Lucas on deck. So Dan Wilson said, I think Gabe Spire can get George Springer out, and then we can face Lucas and we can avoid that hitter. We're going to try to steal a couple more outs and get deeper into this game. Why I don't like that is the difference between being down 4-1 and 3-1 in a game like this is massive, especially with the Mariners' inability to hit anything other than solo home runs except for the grand slam by Suarez and the 2 3-run homers in the one game. Other than that, though, it was a lot of solo shots, a couple hits here. They were scoring like 1 run an inning. They just didn't have that offensive explosion, so they needed to keep it close. Every run matters. So trying to steal an out in the 4th inning from your lefty against a guy who rakes lefties probably isn't a good idea. Bring the guy that dominates in from the bullpen. Instead, we leave him out there. He gets 1-1, throws a slider, gives up a double, gives up the run. And now he faces Luke, so he gets out of that, and then Brash comes in. So now it's 4-1 with a guy in second. And for me, I was like, you just left Spire in way too long. Not only that, when Spire went up to face Springer, he had thrown 26 pitches already, and he sat down and got up. So we had up downs, we have 26 pitches. Like what is the benefit here? Just to get a couple more outs? It's just too high risk to get 1 extra out. There's no other benefit other than getting an extra out from your lefty. So I would have pulled Spire, though he's been very, very good and he's gotten righties out. In this situation, you need the guy to strike out George Springer. We don't want this run to score. And they let the run score, and what happened? Ended up being 8-2, and they weren't able to get any momentum back. It's about momentum, and they were continuing giving up momentum there. So didn't love that decision either. Though they were already behind and they might have still lost the game, this was a point where you could make a good decision, shut down that momentum away from you so that you can capture some of it back. Say you keep it 3-1, then you score a run. Now it's 3-2. Now the game's different. But instead you're 4-1. The hitters feel more pressure. They take a couple bad swings, and then before you know it, it's 8-2 and you lost, which ended up what happening, and they tied the series at that point. I was also a little bit in a head-scratchy mode at that time as well. And you had the options, so just bring the guys in that do the specific thing you need done well, and it didn't happen. So just a couple things I noticed. Also, some weird turning point stuff. This thing. So Josh Naylor jumps up to basically break up a double play, right? You want to make a guy throwing the ball think about it. Like, you want him to like hesitate for a second, like, oh, I don't have a path. I'm losing my, my vision here, and maybe you'll make an errant throw. Ernie Clement, though, is a consummate professional and just was like, okay, if you're gonna jump up, I'm just gonna throw it straight through you. And he did. Honestly, I think Josh Naylor thought that he wasn't gonna touch it. Because most of the time you don't touch it, but not this time. And that was potentially a rally killer right there. He's on first base. They scored a run in the first inning. And I mean, I understand it probably would have been a double play either way, but it feels like a silly mistake that then kills any momentum you have moving forward. And that inevitably is what it is. They had to scrape by runs for the rest of the game, and they were never able to really put a ton of pressure on Savage and end up taking the game. Like, all of these little moments matter. So I think he's out here trying to make plays happen, and this right here was maybe just something that automatically happens. I don't know if he does this a lot in the past, but it just did not look good, and I know that a lot of fans at home were probably not feeling great after that as well. There is a rule against this. It's Rule 6.01, Section A, subsection 5. Thank you, DK, for finding that. It says, any batter or runner who has been put out or any runner who has just scored hinders or impedes any following play being made on a runner, such runner shall be cleared out for the interference of his teammate. The interference rule, and it happened. And I was just like, why are we doing this? But I also understand that you can't take guys out anymore. You can't slide into base anymore. So you got to find a way to get in the way. I should have just done what Aaron Judge did, throw his hand up in the air and see, because that at least that you can make a case for that wasn't on purpose. This just looked very much on purpose, even if his intention was not to touch the ball. All right, so we know the series have inevitably coalesced in Vladdy Guerrero Jr., bringing home the ALCS MVP. He went 10 for 26, hit 385 with 3 home runs, 3 doubles, and a 1330 OPS. He has 6 postseason home runs, and he hit them all this year. And he's already tied Jose Bautista for the franchise record. Oh, and Joe Carter. Joe Carter, he's a big deal. Vladdy said after the game, I was born here. I grew up in the Dominican, and from that moment that I signed here, I knew I was going to be here my entire career. I knew that somehow I had to make all the fans, the entire country, proud of my team. Like I always say, my challenge is to bring the World Series back to Canada. But couldn't have been the Mariners. That's good. I mean, that was very well said. You can't help but be proud of him for that. Let's wrap this series up. Let's give you a little bit of let's wrap it up so I don't have to think about it anymore. At the end of the day, the Blue Jays just made less mistakes than the Mariners. Full stop. When the Blue Jays won their games, they played a much tighter game than vice versa. And that just is what ends up happening when you guys play for a week and a half in the 7 games. Usually the team that makes the less mistakes when you're this evenly matched wins the series. A good team can work around a few missed opportunities. The Mariners simply had too many missed opportunities pile up. From Game 6, they had the base loaded less than 2 outs twice, didn't score a run either time. They allowed too many immediate responses when they scored. They messed up too many shutdown innings where they scored some runs, and then they allowed them to score some runs in the next half inning. They weren't able to hold momentum. I would say that the Blue Jays had momentum for so long in the series that it just wears on you, especially after you just did the exact same thing in the series before that. They threw too many pitches in the middle of the strike zone, so when it rained, it poured, and those games weren't very close, and they didn't capitalize on any of the big pressure moments when they could push. They could really push the momentum back into their dugout, and they just didn't capitalize. And that's what happened. And it stinks, and I feel bad for you guys, but on the flip side, the Blue Jays show that's what it takes to get to the World Series, and that's what they did. They did what it took.